before the route map is applied. This is what the routing table looks like on R1. The routing table shows that every single route's being redistributed. They all have a metric of 20, and they're all E2s. That's defaults. Go back to the example. 11, 12, 13, 14 being redistributed, all with the default values. 11, 12, 13, 14 with the default values. However, after we apply the route map, we no longer redistribute 13 and 14. We can see they've been removed, not being redistributed into OSPF from EIGRP anymore. Metric type is now E1, and the metric itself is set to 35. Let's do an example in our live environment. R3 is performing redistribution for us. We are redistributing from OSPF into EIGRP, EIGRP into OSPF. Let's take a look at our configurations that we did earlier. Show run pipe to section router. We look at this output, we'll see that router EIGRP 100 has a redistribute command, redistribute OSPF1 metric. There's our metrics. If we look at router OSPF1, we are redistributing EIGRP 100, metric 35, metric type 1, subnets. And then we have our IPv6 redistribution for both EIGRP and OSPF. The thing to realize right now, folks, is that regardless of whether we're dealing with IPv4 or IPv6, when it comes to EIGRP or OSPF, the discussions we're having on route maps and distribute lists and prefix lists and access control lists, all of that still applies to IPv6 as well. Even though the focus has been on IPv4 in this course, it definitely applies to both. So you can create an IPv6 prefix list, IPv6 access control lists, and apply them with distribute lists or route maps underneath your IPv6 router configuration mode as well. So what I'd like to do right now is I'd like to remove our router OSPF configuration here for redistribution. So configure terminal, and we'll paste that in. And let's say no redistribute EIGRP 100, and no, we're going to have to, that would have just removed the subnets keyword. So let's see if that solves the problem now. Do show run pipe to section router. All right, router OSPF1. So it just says redistribute EIGRP 100. We're looking good so far. So even though I remove these commands, notice it's just taking off subnets, and then it's just taking off the metrics and metric types. It just doesn't get rid of it all in one command. So if you've ever dealt with that in the real world, you know what I'm feeling right now. Redistribute EIGRP 100. Let's add back in that subnets keyword to make sure that we get the redistribution as we want it. So now when we look in R7, we're going to use R7 as our example. If we type in show IP route, we should see that they're E2 routes, and they have their default metric of 20 instead of having E1s with the metric that we supplied before. So we've removed that. We're back to square one. So our goal now on R3 is to modify some of the routes, not all of them. So we're going to focus on 10.1.1.0, 10.1.1.16, 10.1.1.32, and 10.1.1.48. That's our focus right now. And what we're going to do is we are going to apply a route map to the redistribution of OSPF, and it's going to change some of the values here, just so you can see what it's like. So let's create a prefix list, and that prefix list is going to be for the 10.1.1.0 /28 network right now. So IP prefix list, and it is going to be what type of prefix list? We are just going to call it redistribute redistribute EIGRP to OSPF, because we're going to add some more entries No, we're going to keep the prefix list separate. So I'll redistribute, we'll just say 10.1.1.0 in this example. All right, we're good. And we are going to, in this case, permit. And what are we permitting in this particular case? It's the 10.1.1.0/28 network. And we are focusing just on that specific network, so I'm not going to put in the GE or LE in this case. Let's create our route map. Route-map. And the route map, we're going to call it redistribution. Oh, we'll just call it redis. So that way there, it's easier to type later. And I'm not going to put a sequence number. We're just going to leave it alone. And in this case, we want to permit that. We want to. So what are we going to do? We're going to say permit. And it's asking us for a sequence number. We'll just hit enter. It'll give it its default sequence number. What are we going to match? Match. Okay. So we are permitting because we want to redistribute. I want to redistribute this. And what do I want to match? I want to match IP address. And what IP address do we want to match? It's that prefix list that we created. So let's go back up here and find that prefix list. This is what we called it. I'm going to copy that. We're going to paste it in. Match IP address, redistribute 10.1.1.0. And now it's asking us for, I forgot the prefix list parameter. Prefix list, there we go. And now there's the prefix list. That's what we wanted to do. So just like before, as we said, if we have multiple match condition on the same line, it's an OR. And as you can see, it's giving me the option to specify another prefix list right after this prefix list. So it could be this or this or this. But in this case, we just have the one that we're going to be matching upon. And we're not going to match anything else. We're just matching this particular one. And what do we want to do? We said we're going to set something. What do I want to set? There's a lot of values we can set. A lot of these apply to BGP. Because this is a very powerful tool for BGP manipulation. We can set the autonomous system path, community lists, communities. We can do BGP dampening, extended community lists. But in this case, I'm going to focus on the metrics. And we're going to change the metric of this particular route as it's being redistributed. So we're going to set the metric to what? We are going to set it to a value. And what is the value going to be? We're going to set it to 50. The default's 20, remember, when we redistribute from EIGRP into OSPF. All right. So what do we want to do? We want to apply it. Router, OSPF 1, redistribute EIGRP 100, subnets, and then we're going to apply the route map. So route map, and the route map we called, what was it, redis? Yes, there it is, right there, redistribution. Enter. So it's been applied. So now what do we expect on R7? What do we expect? We expect that the 10.1.1.0/28 network is going to have a metric of 50. And everybody else is going to have a metric of what? 20, the default. So let's go over to R7. This is what the routing table looked like before. What does the routing table look like now?